All right. Beautiful, ladies and gentlemen, we are recording. Okay, so I just wanted to introduce myself. I am one of the academic advisors for the graduate program in the Master's in Counseling and Human Services. And I'm going to be working with Alan tonight on the changes in APA. I think Alan's going to do a little bit of a snippet about APA, and then we'll go into some of the notable changes that have just been made. So you might be familiar with a certain way that now can be a little bit different. So we found this great PowerPoint presentation that we wanted to share with you so you can follow along as well. Okay.
All right. All right. So yeah, again, my name is Alan Kingsley, and I am one of the other advisors here in the graduate program. And Jen and I are both, we thought this was something that was important for us to talk about because APA is so much a part of the program, and it's something that every student can benefit from. And no matter when I talk with instructors, and I don't know, Jen, if this has been your experience, but this is consistently an area where instructors say students lose points all the time. They're easy points, they're gimme points. And just because people are out of practice or they're not quite sure where to go or what things should look like, you end up getting knocked down half a grade, a whole grade. And there's an easy way to make sure that doesn't happen. So APA it stands for the American Psychological Association. That's who developed it originally. It was created for the behavioral and social sciences originally, but it has spread from there to really every different discipline. There are a lot of formats out there besides APA. You may remember from your undergrad, you may have used APA, but perhaps you used MLA or Chicago style, ALA. There's a number of them. Some schools, depending on what major you are, will have used different formats. I come from an English background. I did all my undergrad work in MLA, and then when I got to my grad level and had to go for my degree in education, I had to make the switch to APA. Post uses APA exclusively. So whether you're getting your master's in counseling, your MBA, your bachelor's in equine studies, your associates in sociology, it's all APA. There are a couple of benefits to APA, really. First is that you're speaking the same language as every other college student in the country, and internationally too. The APA formatting that Post uses is the same as the APA used at UCLA or Eton or Naugatuck Valley Community College. So if you know what the format looks like, you can look at what they are doing and you will know exactly where the other authors are coming from, and they can do the same with you. It's also beneficial for protecting yourself. When you're looking at when someone's looking at your paper, they want to see where your research is coming from, where your information is coming from. And if I write a paper talking about how the sky is green, and my instructor can go back to me and say, hey, it's not true. But with the APA format, they can see where I got that from. I got that from skysgreen.com. And now they have a little more information about how I arrived at that conclusion. And, maybe the source is faulty. Maybe there's, it gives them just more of a trail to follow. And that's true whether they want to just get extra information on the topic that you're writing about that they suddenly find so interesting, or again, it can be used to protect yourself because, hey, I found this thing from a very respected person that says this, and just because your professor thinks otherwise, well, now they can, they gives them more information to go on. And lastly, like I already said, these are easy points. Everything in Post programs has a rubric attached to it, and in every rubric you're going to find whether your references and citations and formatting is correct. These are really, really easy points, and you can wind up getting really knocked around in your grades if you are not aware of how everything ought to look. And I think just the last thing that I wanted to touch on is that this is an area where students are often finding a lot of difficulty. There's a lot of frustration. And I think it comes from the fact that there is no silver bullet to APA. There's not a quick fix. There's not an easy mnemonic device you can remember and suddenly you know all the formats. It's just something that really you got to learn. There are these sort of
Yes.
auto formatting websites out there. There are places that are, you can go and feed in your information. It'll spit APA back out at you. I would encourage you not to rely on those. They're out there, but every time I teach, I will have a student. It happens honestly every time. I'll give them points off for the way that their references are cited, and they'll come back and say, "Well, I put it through the website," and I have to tell them, "Okay, I'm glad that you did that. I'm glad you're trying, but I know what APA format is, and that's not it." I really just recommend that you learn it. You do it, and you do it, and you do it, and you do it right long enough, and you'll start to realize when things look wrong. You're going to find in tonight's presentation, the 7th edition is the first update to APA in 10 years. A lot of it's very similar to the APA you may have been exposed to before, but there are some important changes. And in general, I think they're changes that make things a lot easier. Jen's going to go over really the three major parts of APA: the references and in-text citations, the language that you use in your paper, and the format of your paper. This is not a comprehensive top to bottom look at APA and how you start from square one, but we can direct you to some of those resources. And this, I think, should still give you a very good overview of exactly what you should be looking for in your paper and what you can expect to find moving forward, and what's going to be expected of you moving forward. And with that, I will hand it over to Jen.
Awesome, Alan. I just wanted to welcome a couple people that just came on, Karen and Dorothy?
Dorothy.
Doris. Okay.
Yes.
I wanted to welcome you guys. If you missed the very beginning of this, we are recording, so you can go back and review the beginning of the webinar.
Okay,
I am going to do some, you're welcome. I'm going to do some of the 7th edition updates, but I just wanted to kind of piggyback on a few things that Alan said, just to kind of drive the point home a little bit, is that I instruct here as well, and this is what I see mostly on occasion, that students will get points taken off. Generally, their material is very strong. The information they get is very strong. It's just the fact of how it's put together. The reference page, sometimes I see in blocks, and there's no indentations where there needs to be. And there's no spacing, and it just looks like one big block. That has to be taken points off for, and unfortunately for you guys, that doesn't help the grade. And we hear as advisors, well, it's frustrating because we're doing the work, so why are we getting points taken on APA? That's just part of the standard that we have to go by. Like Alan said, every university uses it. It doesn't change whether it's Post or Harvard. It's APA is APA. So I understand that it can be a lot, and what I recommend, and this is what I tell my students, my advisees as well as my students in class, APA is not something that you're going to be able to memorize and just kind of shoot it out at any given time that you need it. I still have to look things up, and I've been teaching for over 12 years now, and in my programs, like my master's and my doctorate, I had to do APA as well, and it's something that is changing. Granted, it's been 10 years since the last change, but to be expected to know every little bit and how to cite something or reference something, I'm sorry, that was taken from a television show, is going to be a little bit different than something you're going to reference from a journal, a peer-reviewed journal. Okay, and that's the other thing I wanted to mention too, is that when you are looking at different references, you want to look at peer-reviewed references. You don't necessarily want to go to Google and look up something and cite and reference that. That is not reviewed by your peers, and that is not something that any instructor will recommend. They also don't like you to use Google Scholar. I've had students, and I'm just giving this little tip out. I don't know if if Alan does this or whatnot, but these are my lists. I have had students come to me and say, well, I go to Google Scholar to look something up, and then I'll go to the post library and I'll type it in to make sure that what I'm finding is making sense and that it actually relates to what I want to talk about. Then I'll find it at the library and I'll get the correct citation and reference information there. I'm fine with that as long as you're using the correct formatting and you're using the library as peer-reviewed journals, okay? And again, I would think that that would be something that an instructor would look at as long as you're using your peer-reviewed journals.
That's my experience as well. Yeah, it's as long as you're going back to the primary source, that's always going to be the best way to make sure that you're really giving yourself the best citations, the most accurate citations. Yeah, I would totally agree.
And if you want to use Google Scholar to get more information for you, then that's fine. But like as Alan just said, using the first most reliable source, that's what you're going to want to do. The second thing that happens in my teaching that I've noticed with APA is that students will take something from a source and they will copy it right into the paper, put quotations around it and cite it and call that their own. And that is not their own. That's actually, and I'm sure many of you have heard of this, but it's a form of plagiarism, and we're not going to get too far into that because that's not what our webinar is. But we just want to make sure that your understanding of when you go to a source and you're looking up material, you're taking that material and you're paraphrasing it into your own words, citing and referencing it. Okay, what you would have done just then by copying and pasting that out of a source would be plagiarizing, okay? Even though you found it, you quoted it, you referenced it, and you cited it, it's still considered plagiarism. So I just want to make sure that everyone is aware of that. Always, always find the information, read it, close the book, minimize the web page, and then take what you just read and I hate to say this word, but regurgitate it into your own words. That's the best way for me to describe it. But just make sure you're closing the material that you just read, okay? If that makes sense. All right. You want to jump in on that, Alan, or are we good? We'll just go into the changes.
No, I think that that's great. I think that's absolutely right on. And I think if you are coming from, your memories of your undergrad or, in grade school or whenever that you may have cited things in the past, you may have done a lot of the direct quoting. And there are very specific circumstances where that is fine. When there is nowhere other way for you to possibly say this bit of information, then okay. But really, yeah, a direct quotation at the graduate level is something you want to use very, very sparingly. And if you're using it, you should be using it on the smallest amount of text possible. These are really things they want to see done in your own words, whether you are paraphrasing or summarizing. Those are still, those are better ways and frankly, easier ways to make it flow with the rest of your paper than putting in a direct quotation and then sort of working words around those quotation marks to make it read in a way that makes sense. So really, yeah, paraphrasing, summarizing, that is your friend. You're going to cite them the same way you would cite a direct quotation. But yeah, that's really the best thing that you can do most of the time, 90% of the time.
Absolutely. Okay, so to move on to the presentation that I have, it's a small presentation, again, focuses on certain areas. It's meant for you to follow along. It's got a couple pictures and all of that, so I'm going to speak to it, but I want you to be able to read along as well. One of the things that I tell my students, both advising and teaching, is that I prefer the APA manual. That's just me. It's a personal decision. It's not something that you're going to be offered in every class at Post where you can say that this is something that you want as a book in your class. I always suggest to students go on to Amazon. This is exactly what I say. Go on to Amazon, look up APA 6th edition at the time. Now it's 7th edition, and spend the $22 to $25, have it Amazon Prime to you, and use that book. Some people prefer, thank you, Alan, I think you moved that for me. Some people prefer books in front of them. I find many of my students do. You can certainly use the websites that are given to you in your course, and you can follow them. We have, Purdue OWL, that is wonderful, but I always tell my students Purdue OWL for me is almost like a quick, I have to look this up really fast. I don't have time to do anything else. I'm going to go here. And that's what I use that for. Otherwise, I use the manual. Okay, it's easier now with the 7th edition. They have the tabs. It's in a better binder, so much easier to work with. So when you're looking up either on Amazon or if you're at Barnes and Noble or wherever you are, this is what the book is going to look like, this multicolored 7th edition. Okay.
I have a quick question.
Yeah, let me go back.
That manual, is that available in the post-university library?
Oh, in the library, I believe they have them. In the bookstore, I am not sure that that's for purchase.
The
I'm not, Alan, are you aware?
Well, I meant the online one. Like, is that accessible for us?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, the best thing you can do if you're looking through the post library, if you go to the library tab in Blackboard and scroll down into the library, you're going to find a list of a whole bunch of links. One of them is called Academic Writer. And Academic Writer used to be called APA Style Central, I believe. And that is sort of the web version of this publication manual. It's definitely a place that I try to point my students towards. And I find that it is going to usually have everything that you're looking for if you don't have a physical copy of the book, which, again, not everybody prefers. But yeah, when you first go to that library tab, if you start scrolling, you'll find a million little links, and you want to look for Academic Writer. That'll give you more than likely always what you need.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And it should follow, it should follow along pretty closely as well. Okay. So the next slide, basically what has changed from 6 to 7. There are better guidelines now for citing online media. It used to be very confusing, I felt, in 6. So now you have a better opportunity to understand your citations in online, okay? Again, better guidelines for inclusive and bias-free language. Okay. A student-specific paper format. All right. And minor changes in how to cite sources. Okay. So this is something that you'll notice if you've been using 6 quite a bit. You will definitely see the change. If you haven't been and this is new to you, I don't think you're going to be. It's going to be as noticeable for you. But these are pretty much the 4 bullet points that have changed. Okay. Okay. So references and in-text citations. Here are our notable changes that we wanted to discuss. Now, what I like about this is it shows the difference. Okay. So publisher location not included. Okay. So the correct way to do it now is the green checkbox. So you'll notice that in 6, they had New York, New York. Now you don't have to do that. You can simply put the title and then where the publisher is, or who's the publisher.
And I find that was always one of the most challenging parts of doing a correct citation, is trying to figure out where it was published. I just, for some reason with me, it was always one of the biggest details that students would leave out, and I personally found it very annoying. So I think it's one of a couple of great little streamlining things. It's just simply to make things easier.
Exactly. And if you're using a lot of books in your referencing, you're flipping through all the pages to get to the very first or second page to find out where this was published. So now you don't necessarily have to worry about it. So this is a nice change. Okay, let me go to the next one. Okay, so in-text citations are shortened. All right. I know this was always a pet peeve with a lot of my students where it was like, why do I have to write 5 to 10 names, you know? So the top one, you don't have to do anymore. Okay, so you've got Taylor, Kotler, Johnson, and Parker. Okay, now in the 7th edition, you can just put Taylor et al. Okay. Just make sure you put your period and your comma, but then you're good. All right, so that's a nice change. Because one thing too with these kinds of in-text citation changes is that I understand that it can almost interrupt your reading. You know what I mean? Like you're going through something and you're reading it and then you've got like a line and a half of these citations and you're like, what? What? I have to read the last sentence I was just on. So this is going to help greatly.
May I interrupt again?
Yeah, of course, of course.
So this is recorded. We'll have access to this. I tried to do a snippet of the screen, but my computer's giving me issues.
Yes, it's definitely recorded.
Okay,
yeah,
great.
we're gonna upload this to the university YouTube channel.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
And honestly, if you contact either Jen or myself, we should probably also be able to send you this PowerPoint presentation. So
okay,
we're happy to do that.
Thank you.
Definitely. You're welcome. Okay, so now you can do up to 20 authors in a reference list. Why this you would want to or use someone a reference of 20 authors, I don't know, but you can now. Before you had to stop and put your ... dots, the 3 dots. Okay, so the top one is the way it used to be in the 6th edition, and now you can go up to 20 and then at 20 ... Okay, so the only thing you'll notice is it goes ... and then Nelson T period P period and then 2018. Nelson should be the last person.
Okay.
So they're doing ... to the last person. Okay. So if you ever have a reference that's this long. Okay. And Alan and I found this kind of exciting. The DOIs are formatted as URLs now, okay? It's little things like this when you've been doing this for so long. The DOI at the top was the 6th edition, obviously. It doesn't show where it's from. It's, you know, nothing. The bottom one, the 7th edition now, you put in the web address. So that's nice.
And the DOI is one of those things, you're only going to run into that if it's a very specific type of reference, but
yes,
it's something that being able to actually throw out a website there, it makes it easier from an instructor point of view, certainly, or from somebody, if you are trying to dig deeper into the topic, you can cut and paste a web address as opposed to having to, you know, to go to the source and type in that big long number. It's easier for a number of reasons. It's a small change, but I like that one too.
Yeah. And just a little trick there, make sure when you are putting in the website that you convert that out of website. Okay, you want to convert that to text when you're putting your reference in. Instructors don't really care to see a blue link and then all the numbers in the text. Okay, so as much as you can convert into text from a website would be great. Okay, and you may know that already. I just like to throw that out because sometimes I tend to see, and this happens a lot more in my grad class, but they tend to not change it, and so that's one thing I just kind of remind them. Okay, citing web pages. All right, so you'll see here, this was another one I think Alan and I were like, woohoo! The 6th edition, you had to say retrieved from. Now You don't have to any longer.
What?
I know, right? See, some of these things are exciting, right?
This one is.
What'd you guys do on a Tuesday night? We learned what we can take out of APA. It's wonderful, I'm telling you. So right there, that's what you don't have to do any longer. Take out your retrieved from.
But you do also notice that in the new format, you are italicizing the title of the article and you are writing in where it's coming from. That's BBC News. So really, it looks like any other normal text citation.
Absolutely.
But yeah, but this was an area where my students would lose points constantly. And I hate taking away points for that, but the rubric's the rubric. And now they don't have to. So like I said, lots of streamlining, exciting stuff.
Okay, number 6 is citing ebooks. Since we use so many ebooks these days, we used to have to put the version where you got it, so Kindle version. Now you just have to put, hold on one sec, I just lost something there. Okay, now you just have to put the title and where you got it, the web address. See how you're doing the web address there for the DOI?
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Yep. Yep, so that's nice. All right. Okay. So this is number 7. So we have different contributors other than authors. Okay, so our media type, film, include as author, director. Okay, so you can also go down. I don't want to read every single one of them to you, but basically you have your media type and then include as the author, okay? That was always something that my students got confused on. It's like, well, what do you do if it's a TV series? Who do we put? Now you know. The author is the executive producer or producers. Yeah. Okay. So I'll move on there. And again, you can go back to this at any time. So, all right. So our inclusive and bias-free language updates. Okay. Use singular they. Okay, so before, a researcher's career depends on how often he is cited. So now it's how often they are cited. Okay. Yep. Or an examiner submitted his or her assessment. So now you can say each examiner submitted their assessment. Just make sure you're using the right there, and you're good. So, all right. So that's nice. Okay. Be sensitive to labels. Okay, before we could say the poor, now it's people living in poverty. All right, transsexuals, now we say transgender people. Okay, so I find this to be a little bit more politically correct. So we're just being sensitive to labels, we're being politically correct too. Okay, so how you might speak in class is, you know, how you're going to write it out. Appropriate level of specificity. That's one word you can't say 5 times in a row. Okay, so over 65s, that just sounds funny, right? Over 65s. So people age 65 to 75 is how it should be written now. Okay. And then Asian participants. They want the Asian participants broken out now. All right.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of these in this, you know, when they're talking about the language and the way that we say things, the way that we speak and the way that we write are very different. You know, and there's often we have a tendency to speak or to write as we speak, because we want to feel like we are giving ourselves like an authorial voice, and we want to be we want to sound natural, and so we think that if we just type things the way that we say them, that's going to sound natural. And the truth is, it doesn't always. There's a lot of You lose tone when you don't take the care with the words that you choose, and I think that there's a lot that can be read into, or a lot that simply doesn't sound formal, for lack of a better word. That there's no problem with saying the over 65s if you're talking to somebody about about demographics or about the results of a survey or whatever. But if you're trying to be, if you're writing for your audience in this case being your instructor at a in a graduate level program at a university, you want to make sure you're using the right words, and you're coming across the way that you want to come across, which is as a professional and as a mature individual. And so a lot of these changes, I think, really reinforce that in a lot of good ways.
I also think another way to kind of say that too is that you're not going to speak scholarly to one of your friends that you're with, and I think that's what we're looking for here now, is this new edition wants you to speak a little more scholarly, if that makes sense. And I tell my students all the time, I don't know if Alan does, but I hate when I hate text talk when in like a paper, or oh my God, drives me crazy. And I will tell you how many times I've found like they're writing you when they put you, the letter U. And sometimes you have to stop yourself and think, okay, I'm not writing a quick message. I have to write the word out. And it's funny, I find that I do that with my son. My son's 11 years old, and we'll text each other back and forth, and I tend to text him the you. And I'm like, no, I have to change that because I'm the mom and I'm an instructor and it needs to be YOU. So little things like that. And we just have to get our mind wrapped around.
Yeah. When I started dating my wife, she would laugh at me because I texted in full sentences with punctuation. But what can I say?
I love that. That's the English in you. Absolutely. Okay, so paper format, student-specific guidelines. That's our next grouping here. This was exciting. I have to say, you can write now in more than one font in APA. Yeah, see? Alan and I were happy about that too. Times New Roman is pretty much the general, but you can use Arial, Georgia, Calibri, and Lucida Sans Unicode. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not up on font names, but as long as you're being specific and using the font size and all of that, you can.
And we should also...
I don't think I can.
Right?
I would also, just to clarify, just in case, pick one and stick with it. It doesn't mean you can switch them throughout the paper.
That's great. I would love that. Just change it all up. Every page is a different font. No, I'm kidding. Yeah. Don't do that. But
I teach on the undergrad level, so I don't teach on the graduate level here, but you'd be surprised what students will submit thinking that it's a good idea. So just wanted to put it out there.
Whichever one makes it longer.
There you go. Yep, exactly.
Exactly.
It's triple spaced, spaces between the paragraphs, and a diagram on page 8. Yes.
That's perfect. I love it. Okay, no more running head, ladies and gentlemen. Woohoo!
Really?
Yeah. This was a big one. I personally never.
I am happy.
I know, right? I personally never liked it. I
lose marks for not putting in the running head.
So this is a nice one as well. No more running heads. Okay, so an updated heading style now. Okay, so we basically have centered bold title case. Okay, that's your level 1. When you go through your levels of formatting in your papers, you start centered bold title case, and then your level 2. This has changed. So left aligned bold title case. And you guys just follow it straight down. I don't want to treat you like kids and read to you, but basically when you go through your levels, your formats are going to be a little bit different. Okay.
Recommended resources.
All right. So this is another good one. All right, going to move on to the next one. Okay, recommended resources. Okay, so these are just some resources that this particular website chooses to use. I loved this PowerPoint, so I'm all about them. Knowledge base, 300 plus articles, free APA citation generator, and YouTube. Okay.
Yeah, and this is Scribbr is the company that we
Yes.
found this PowerPoint presentation in, so they do ask that we give them credit, and we pimp out their stuff at the end of the presentation. So this is all stuff specific to this company. We like this a lot. I've seen their stuff in the past, and I like it a lot. As I said, I'm not a big fan of the citation generators. I think students should just learn it, but it is there. I've liked everything else they've done, so. And if you do get the copy of this from us, those are working links that will send you to each of their places.
Yeah, I tend to agree with Alan in the citation generators. I mean, it's good for a quick, got to get this done, but in the end, it's not going to teach you how to actually write out your citation and know to put the period, comma, space, parenthesis, date, parentheses, period. You know what I mean? Like, that's the kind of thing that you have to do over and over in order to get that stuck in your head. What I do like the YouTube channel for is paraphrasing. There are a lot of good YouTube paraphrasing examples. So for those that, get stuck on how to paraphrase or summarize something so that I don't get points off for plagiarism, that's a great place to go. Okay. Okay, and here are the prices. Student's Guide, $31.99. You can get it at Amazon for a little less. Hardcover, paperback, spiral bound. I personally got the spiral bound just because I find it so much easier to get through. And then you have your ebook. It's just easier to flip a page over and have them both right there, easily staring back at you. So, okay, so that's prices. And this is just talking about Scribbr, okay? And basically who they are. And we're giving them, like Alan said, we're giving them a little credit here. And I'm not sure, again, this isn't about plagiarism, this particular webinar, but I don't know if any of you know about plagiarism websites that you can run your papers through. There are them out there. I asked them in the past. Plagiarism Checker is one of them. You can certainly use that if you think you might be, not paraphrasing as much as you should. Okay. So, and there we go. This is just.
That's it.
That's it. Okay. Beginning. Just to kind of, I'm just going to flip through to get back to the main page. So if anybody has questions or anything like that, that Alan and I can answer, we're happy to.
This was helpful for me. I also learned that I have been doing APA 6th edition wrong. So this was great for me.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, not wonderful that you found out you were doing it wrong, but still.
I know. Right.
And of course, what we say here is that this is our opinion. This is what we think, by me telling you, go get the book, that's my advice. That doesn't mean that the book is going to be the best option for you. If you love things on the website and you'd prefer to, look at an ebook or a website, completely your choice. Just know you have options.
And I'm guessing this is going to be applied to all of our classes moving forward.
It should have been as of this fall. 7th edition should be the standard. I understand that some instructors maybe were a little slow on the uptake and maybe they didn't quite make it in there. But yes, this should now be the standard across the board.
Oh, okay. Yes. So I guess my instructors were lenient on it for us, which is good.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, there was a period that, you know, we got information from above, like the provost, you know, saying that you could use both for a transition period.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I just wanted to ask really quick. I have capstone in March, and I guess I can expect that they'll definitely be looking for this APA 7th edition style by taking that class, correct?
I would think so. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm thinking it
Um,
probably pays to buy the book you both recommended that we get.
I certainly think it couldn't hurt. I feel like, you know, it's always, as always, it depends on your instructor. There are instructors who care more about, you know, is the content of your paper correct than did you do your formatting right?
Right.
Everybody should care equally about APA, but Jen and I are just kind of nerds about this stuff, so we both care a lot. And I think it's better to err on the side of let's just make sure you did it correctly, you know, rather
Yeah,
than
especially with it being capstone too.
Exactly. Every point
Yeah.
counts. So.
Right.
What
Right. Okay.
capstone are you going into, Scott? Which one is it?
Well, I mean, I'm a marketing concentration, so I still have my
Okay.
last core class in January, and then March and April will be the capstones.
Right. Okay,
I'm
great.
looking forward to that.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, and I should also mention, if there are other questions, we do have, you know, of course, you can always talk to your advisors. You know, that Jen and I probably know more about this than some of the others. Our specializations all kind of fall in different places. But academic writer, again, there's great stuff in there. The Purdue OWL, you may be familiar with already. That's, you know, that is sort of the gold standard of what's correct and what is not. The website's a little dry. Sometimes I've had trouble finding exactly what I'm looking for in there sometimes, but they really are. You know, Purdue is where it's at. That's the Purdue Online Writing Lab, the Purdue OWL. And then also through Post, we do have access to TutorMe. That is a 24/7 online chat-based tutoring service. And students get 10 free hours a term. That's when it's 3 in the morning and you're just not sure what this concept is, or you can't quite get this paper right. They are, you know, you can log into TutorMe and be connected with somebody who knows this subject or can proofread your papers. Again, it's 10 free hours per term, every term. If you run out of those hours, talk to your advisor. I hesitate to guarantee things, but in general, we can get you more if you need them.
Yeah.
And this is something you're already paying for. So I really, really recommend that people use it as best possible. The best thing if you are going for help with APA or for help with your papers is to be specific with them. If you just show up and say, help, I don't know what I'm doing, then, you know, that's going to be probably a wasted session. But if you go and say, hey, I know my APA isn't great, then they are going to go through and, you know, they'll just be able to laser focus on that and get it right. Or, hey, I know I have a problem with commas, or I'm not good with run-on sentences, or I feel like this is my thesis statement. Do you feel like this carries me through to the end of the, you know, to the end of the paper? They are very, very good for things like that. And like I said, it's already part of your tuition. So I strongly encourage you to use that. We have the Center for Academic Success here on campus as well. They are wonderful. They've got a great staff, but there are definitely also times where they are a little overwhelmed. And so TutorMe is, again, it's a larger service. It is third party from Post, but I've had students who get great results through them. So you can find that in the Student Services tab of Blackboard, and I highly, highly recommend them.
I agree. I totally agree. I send my students there all the time. I do send my students to the Center for Academic Success as well. The one thing with the Center of Academic Success that I just want to make sure that everyone is aware of is that they can specifically help you with this as APA. They can also help you with formatting and all of that, formatting your paper in general. What they really don't do is they don't write the papers for you based upon what the question was. So I just, you know, a lot of students think that they're going to help them prep the paper for them, and that's not necessarily what they're there for. They're there to make sure that the paper looks correct, that you've done everything that is part of the rubric. And if they see something, of course, that's out of line, you know, meaning APA or paragraph formatting, that's what they're there for. So I just kind of want to mention that as well.
All right. Any last questions or anything else before we wrap this up?
I just want to say thanks. Now I've learned where I'm falling short and where I am going out now to buy the book.
You're
Same
so
here.
welcome.
You're
Yeah,
very
because
welcome.
my weakness is in APA and formatting and citing. So now I know I need that book to get me through.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And again, if you'd like to speak with me or Jen, if you don't have our direct contact info, talk to your ASC. Whether
Yeah.
if you work with Emily or Sean or Alex or Trudy, just have them put you in touch with us, and we'll be happy to send this along to you.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, and thanks
Right.
again.
Yeah. Thank you guys
Yeah,
so
thank
much
you
for
very
coming.
much.
Yeah.
Everyone have a good night and Happy New
You
Year.
too.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Happy
you.
New Year.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye,
Bye.
everybody.